I'm Anna Smith.
Thanks so much for meeting with me today. I promise I won't take too much of your time. I'm Helen Johnson, the director of the Humanities Center at Penn State.
Oh, the congressman is always happy to hear from people from Penn State. How can I help you today?
We're actually here to talk to you about the National Endowment for the Humanities.
Oh, I was just speaking last week with someone from NEH. Who was that?
Someone from the Pennsylvania Humanities Council. I believe they were here.
Oh, right. They were here talking about NEH's programs for veterans.
Yes, the state councils support wonderful work that reaches people all across the state. As you might know, the state councils are actually funded in part by an annual grant from the NEH, but the NEH gives out other grants that support some national programs. These programs reach people across the state of Pennsylvania, including at Penn State, where professors in fields of history and philosophy and literature really depend on these grants to conduct top-notch research.
I know we've received notification of these grants. There are a lot of them.
Yes, and they have importance beyond the district as well. Let me give you just one example. I have a colleague who studies East Asian history and received a grant to study 20th century China. She'll deepen her expertise in Chinese history and culture and then pass that expertise along to her students. As we know in a globalized world, it is very important that we have that deep understanding of the history, the culture, and the economy of these other countries, especially in a case like China.
I definitely agree. I was a history major myself.
Oh, that's great. Here's some information on the broader work that NEH does. So I have just two requests for you today. The first is that it would be wonderful if your boss would sign the Dear Colleague letter, which expresses robust support for NEH's budget. It's a bipartisan letter led by Representatives David Price and Leonard Lance, and it asks for a very small increase in NEH's modest budget, which is just $147.9 million annually.
Oh, that's not a lot.
But it is crucial funding. Those who receive NEH grants are often able to leverage those for private funding. An NEH grant is the gold standard. Do you think your congressman would be willing to sign the letter?
Possibly. But he is very careful about which appropriations letters he signs.
I understand, but I do hope that he will. As I said, it is a letter that garners bipartisan support. My second request is that we would love for the congressman to join the Congressional Humanities Caucus. I did notice that he was a member of the Arts Caucus.
Huh, possibly.
The caucus organizes outings for staffers to visit cultural sites in D.C., and if Representative Thompson were to join, it would be a great show of support.
Great. I'll ask.
Okay, I'll follow up with this information via email. And then finally, do you think the congressman would be willing to join us on campus for the opening of the new museum?
Possibly, but I would actually follow up with the district office.
I will do that. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Sorry for the wait. I'm Julie Thomas.
No problem. Thank you for meeting with me today. I know it is a busy time.
It's crazy around here. We're trying to get all of our programmatic requests to the chairman, and we've just been working around the clock.
Well, I will not take too much time today. My name is Stuart Wilson, and I'm a professor of medieval philosophy at the University of Richmond.
Oh, I was an undergraduate there. I majored in economics.
Did you take any philosophy classes?
I can't say that I did.
That's too bad, but I know the economics department is top-notch. I'm here today to talk to you about how important the National Endowment for the Humanities is to Virginia. Are you familiar with its work?
Somewhat.
Just to offer a brief overview, the National Endowment for the Humanities offers competitive grants for research in fields such as history, philosophy, and literature. It also provides funding to museums and historical societies all across the country to ensure that we preserve our local cultural heritage. It receives just a relatively small amount of federal funding, currently $147.9 million. Here is a quick briefing sheet. In your district, a small grant just went to the archives at Randolph-Macon College to preserve historic documents on the history of the Methodist Church in Virginia and intellectual life in the colonial South. This grant, which was just $5,375, is going to allow the library to identify what it needs to do to ensure that this collection is preserved properly so that the documents will be available for years to come.
I'll stop you right there. These sound like excellent programs, but I'm not sure why the federal government has a role here. Isn't this work that private foundations really like?
I understand your concern, and I know that Representative Bratt is very committed to reducing the deficit. What I would emphasize about NEH, however, is that it is a very small federal investment that leverages considerable private funds. For example, challenge grants to museums over the past 10 years have leveraged over 3 times the amount awarded in private funds.
Oh, that's interesting.
I understand that Representative Brett might not feel comfortable signing the Dear Colleague letter, but I want to mention the Congressional Humanities Caucus, which is a bipartisan group of representatives who value the humanities. Given the representative's interest in economic and political philosophy, I thought he might be interested in joining.
I will definitely ask.
Thanks, I really appreciate that. Can I follow up on further information with the Humanities Caucus?
That'd be great.
Wonderful. Thanks again for your time.
I apologize, but we're going to have a meeting in the hallway today. All meeting space inside is full.
It's a busy time of year, huh?
Yes.
Well, I'm here from the Northern Arizona University, where I'm the Dean of the College of Arts and Letters.
Oh, I graduated from NAU in 2015. I was an English major.
I also teach in the English department. What was your favorite course?
Oh, I had an amazing Intro to Shakespeare course my freshman year. That's how I decided to be a major.
Well, that's great to hear. It's also great to see one of our graduates doing such important work at this moment. Well, I'm here today to talk to you about the National Endowment for the Humanities. Are you familiar with the program?
No, not really.
It's okay. It's not uncommon. Here is a briefing sheet that gives some general information about their work. Basically, the NEH gives grants to museums, libraries, historical societies, and to faculty to help support their research and to make them more effective teachers. And they also support all sorts of public programs for lifelong learning. These grants reach all over the country, including our district.
Can you give me some examples of grants that went to the district?
Absolutely. The Congressman might be particularly interested in the grants that went to preserve the cultural heritage of the native peoples of the Colorado Plateau. For example, there was a recent grant that went to the museum in northern Arizona, in Flagstaff, to help preserve the native peoples of the Colorado Plateau exhibit. And you see, this grant was a challenge grant of $120,000, which the museum will now use to leverage to make 3 times that amount. And it was the NEH who gave all the support in order to make this private investment happen.
Oh, I think Representative O'Hanlon would be interested in knowing about that. I know he's very concerned about Native American issues.
Great. Well, I want to mention 2 things to you today that he can do to support the National Endowment for the Humanities. The first, it would be wonderful if he could sign this bipartisan Dear Colleague letter. We are a little bit concerned that the administration's budget will come in very low for NEH, or even propose elimination. But the good news is that there is a lot of bipartisan support for these programs in Congress. In fact, for the past 2 years, the Appropriations Committee has asked for an increase in NEH funding. So we're pushing for at least $155 million to get back some of the capacity that NEH has lost since 2010. Do you think that the Congressman would be willing to sign?
Well, I'll definitely bring it to him.
Wonderful. Do you mind if I follow up to see what he decides?
Oh, sure.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is the bipartisan Congressional Humanities Caucus. I know that Representative O'Halloran is probably in the process of choosing the caucuses to join. Well, membership in the Humanities Caucus will allow him to support NEH and other smaller federal humanities programs, and it will allow him to see any threats to NEH funding.
Oh, that sounds great. I'll bring it to him.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for taking the time today. I will follow up on all of this, and I will let the English department know that one of their own is a staffer on the Hill.
Great! And please don't hesitate to be in touch if there are any threats going forward.
Thank you so much. I will. Have a good one.